Is it okay for the church to get involved in the public arena? Should Christians be actively involved in the free elections of the United States of America? Faith Wins is an organization dedicated to engaging pastors, congregations, and Christians in the public arena. Why, you may ask? Because the influence of Christians needs to be felt around this country. Jesus is the solution, and we need to bring biblical solutions to the marketplace of ideas before it's too late, and we need to do it now. There are over 80 million eligible Christian voters in this country, but only 30 million regularly participate in the elections. This needs to change, and Chad Connelly is going to tell you why in just a minute. Check us out online at faithwins.us. That's faithwins.us. When we sit on the sidelines and hope for a better future, the enemy wins. When we mobilize, register, and make our voices heard, faith wins every time. Hey, thanks for tuning in today to the Faith Wins podcast. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and I'm joined today by the founder of Faith Wins, Chad Connelly. Chad, all right, we've been going through these conversations the last several podcasts on the major objections you get from pastors about holding a non-partisan voter registration in their church, and we're on objection number 3 today. Politics is just a dirty business. And that's a true statement, though, isn't it?
It is. I remember when I got that the first time. I guess we all hear it throughout our lives, but it kind of shocked me that was their excuse not to do voter registration. But it is an excuse I hear a lot.
Well, and the more that we don't get involved, the church doesn't get involved in politics, it becomes a dirtier and dirtier business. Isn't that really the truth?
Well, this is the one that makes me wonder, have they read Matthew 5, verses 13 to 16 about being salt and light? I don't know. I label these objections, but the truth is they're excuses, right? It probably is dirty business. But if we accept the premise that it's dirty business, all the more we ought to be involved. Paul went to tough places. Jesus went to tough places. How can we be salt and light if we're not involved and engaged and we're going in those places? I don't know. This is where there are no sides where Christians need to be Democrat or Republican or independent. Christians need to be Christians. And the only way we can influence an arena is to be involved in it. So honestly, my answer to this is the simplest one, I believe, because, okay, if it's dirty business, then shouldn't we be more involved than less? Maybe it is dirty business because not enough Christian and biblical worldview thinking is involved. And I got a story to tell you. I won't be specific here so I don't indict anyone, but this is a struggle for candidates because it's dirty business. And the piece of that hurts us as believers is not a lot of Christians getting involved, meaning that candidates at the highest level don't have a lot of Christians whispering in their ear how to think through things like policy. I was with GOP Faith at the time. I was with the national chairman, Reince Priebus. It was before a national election for president. A Christian who's a solid believer that I've gotten to know was getting ready to maybe run for president. And he had gone to a foreign country to try to test the waters and check out the media and just get some experience. And a media person asked this particular potential candidate at the time, "So you don't even believe in evolution?" And I remember thinking, now the left never gets asked hard questions. This is not a question that matters to the population, to the voter, but it was a gotcha question. And I've done enough media to know that most of the media is very liberal. Not all of them, only like 96% are liberal. And they never ask gotcha questions. Why wouldn't Joe Biden ever be asked, Mr. Vice President, how would you accept the Margaret Sanger Award from Planned Parenthood, knowing that one of her express stated purposes was the genocide of the black race? Why would you do that? The left doesn't get those questions, right? But this particular potential candidate got this question. And he had been so overcoached by his advisors that he probably spent, 2 or 3 minutes not answering it. And it was painful, Jim. I wanted to pull my teeth out with a screwdriver. It was so bad. And so afterwards, I called his faith guy who I knew. I said, "Hey, man, get off that question. Move on to something else." He said, "We didn't know what to tell him." I said, "Here's what I said on MSNBC. When somebody asked me, 'Oh, you don't even believe in evolution?' I said, 'Well, look, here's what I believe. In the beginning, God. First line of the book. In the beginning, God. When you and I get to heaven, we'll ask, how? Why? Next question. Because it's not on the top list of, goodness, it's not in the top 1,000 things that voters care about is whether or not the candidate believes in evolution. It was only designed by a liberal media person to make the guy look bad. So I'm standing with Chairman Priebus and I said, okay, we got a bunch of believers running. Let me ask you something. He's been poorly coached. What percentage of the advisors who are whispering in the ears of these candidates have a biblical worldview? He said, kind of looked around the room, 3 maybe. I went, wow, there's our problem. So since then, not only have I been dedicated to doing nonpartisan voter registration in churches and to teaching the truth about American Christian history and the free market system that I speak about, I've also been recruiting young people in Christian colleges, Jim, to get involved, get in the pipeline. We've got to be training them along the way. If we accept the premise that politics is a dirty business, then we better put more people in it. And we better train them with a biblical worldview. They can handle these things, and then they become the people who are whispering in the ears of candidates and forming policy.
So when a church begins to bring these biblical truths to the pulpit and they start to engage culture, and healing begins within the community that they operate because they're engaging culture and they're actually doing what Jesus said, minister unto the least of these.
That's right.
That's when faith wins. And isn't it okay? I mean, not only is politics a dirty business and we need to engage this, but we need to actually raise up. Pastors need to encourage people in their congregations to actually run for offices. I was told once, I think it was a guy named Chad Connelly with Faith Wins that said there's over 575,000 offices, elected offices in the United States of America. Didn't I get that from you?
Yeah, you're pretty close at every level. There are plenty of places we can be running Christians. And you're right. If pastors would mention that, hey, have you ever gotten the call to run for office and serve in the public arena? It would make such a difference, Jim, if we did that, if pastors led the way on that.
And they said, and it's okay for you to do this. So if we increase voter registration amongst Christ followers, how does that clean up their dirty business? How does helping Faith Wins succeed in registering Christ followers, registering churchgoers to vote, how does that solve this dirty business problem?
It solves the dirty business problem because then politicians who really only understand 2 things, money and votes. You and I know that Christians aren't giving a bunch of money to politicians, they're giving to the church. And if we're not voting, then we're not even exercising the one thing we have that holds leverage over those politicians. And personnel is policy. And if we don't have people in those pipelines, then we're not the personnel giving the policy to the elected officials. So we have no leverage because we're not voting, and we have nobody whispering in the ear giving advice and counsel on all this myriad list of policies that run through the city, the state, and the local, the federal level every single year. And we start seeing policies that say, hey, it's okay to kill babies in the womb. You know what? It's okay to burn and loot private businesses and homes. That's okay. They can paint murals on the street, whatever they want to do. They can destroy. The kind of things we see as ordinances that are handed down by mayors and governors. It runs the full gamut, and that's why we got to have Christians involved to push back. When you think about some of the bathroom freedom policies that have been pushed and the abortion policies that have been pushed, it just makes me think, man, if there was a Christian grandmama in the room or on the school board or on the county council or in Congress, they'd say, wait a minute, we're not doing that. That's crazy. That's insane. Think again before we're going to make that kind of policy to be the law of the land. And when we don't have biblical worldview in those places, we get non-biblical laws that are being imposed on us.
So the dirty politics, it seems at times a little hopeless. Are you telling me that when we engage in this culture and we start to engage as churchgoers in the political process, that we can turn this around?
82 million. Let's say they're off by 5%. 80 million, 78 million people sitting in churches professing Jesus as Lord. 30 million is the high watermark for people who say, I'm an evangelical and I vote in this election. Everybody agrees there's somewhere between 40 and 50 million non-voting Christians in America. That's sad. And we know that they're not showing up. Therefore, their voices, if their votes aren't being taken, their voices aren't being heard. That's what's happened in our country.
So we need to change that. Go out to faithwins.us and find out how you can set up a voter registration drive in your church. Starting up, we're going to run this voter registration drive this fall. Tell us when we're going to get it done.
We're going to do the last 2 Sundays in September. We're going to pick those last 2. That way people are off of their traveling. They're back in their routine. They're back in church from summertime. And it's 30 days or more outside of that usual time limit of having people register to vote. All the instruction on our site. We've got links for every single state. We make it easy for you.
faithwins.us. Chad Connelly, we're excited. Glad to eliminate. We're looking towards a world where dirty politics gets cleaned up by a bunch of Christians one day. Thank you, Chad.
Amen, brother.
And just remember that when you register to vote and then you vote your biblical values with a biblical worldview, faith wins. Hey, thanks for listening to the Faith Wins podcast with Faith Wins founder, Chad Connelly. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and I want to ask you to check out Faith Wins online at faithwins.us. That's faithwins.us. Your vote is needed and necessary, and we all need to learn to engage in our system of free elections right here in the United States of America. If you're not registered to vote, please take time to do so on your local county voter registration website and do it today. In an upcoming election, vote for candidates supporting biblical values and a biblical worldview. Until next time, remember, when Christians engage in the public arena, faith wins.